G'day guys and welcome to the Battleforged Gaming Podcast episode 23, brought to you by Generalgameschirnside Park. In this episode we have Marc from Lorehammer, the Lorehammer Podcast, and we've got a new face over here. So we've got two co-hosts. We've got Marvin from chat. He's from the infamous episode 16, which disappeared into the warp, and as usual we've got BFG Marc here. So we've got two Marcs. It might get a little bit confusing, but we'll hopefully push through and manage to get things done.
We'll make it work.
We also have an hour time limit. Thank you, Google Meets. I'm going to have to pay for that now. So yeah, fantastic. Don't forget to like, share, and sub as well, guys, because I say that at the end, but I'm getting it at the start. Do that. Fortnightly catch up, guys. What have we been up to? We'll start with Marc from Lorehammer. What have you been up to hobby-wise, my guy?
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, first of all. Real pleasure. Man, I've been going hard on Lord of the Rings minis from Games Workshop. I haven't dipped my toe in 40k in a hot minute, but those Lord of the Rings minis, they just have a special place in my heart.
They're pretty damn cool. Which faction are you painting up?
I'm currently working on some Easterlings and some Dwarves of Erebor and Dale. Kind of like the one thing I like about Middle-earth strategy battle game is you collect the good faction and the evil one, and you kind of do the thematic good and thematic evil. So I got my Easterlings versus Dale, essentially.
Yeah, sick. Easterlings are the dudes in the gold armor with the big mammoths. Is that them?
Yeah. And they got all the scale armor and all that. Very fun to paint.
That's awesome. I like it.
Yeah.
What have you been up to, Marvin?
Me? Well, I've just been working on my crit kill team as per usual. I have 4 models in, which is, a slow pace for me, but that's all right. And then I got an owlbear on the table ready to.
That's right, an owlbear from Pluto Minis.
From Minis, yes. Yeah. So that'll be the next one. I'll prime that this afternoon and get the ball rolling on that one.
I'll be painting a Pluto Mini on tonight's stream after the podcast.
Yeah, nice.
And Marc, BFG Marc?
Yes, as usual, Tyranids. There was a little bit of a halt in it because I was dealing with a little bit of medical stuff. Nothing too bad, so people don't have to worry. But so that slowed me down a little bit. But I also got myself a Pluto Mini to paint, which is a Minotaur. So
is this like a plug? We're doing a plug here for Pluto Minis.
So that will be a little bit different because obviously I'm used to painting pink Tyranids of alien skin type. So I'm going to fur. So it's going to be a bit of a test of my skill, but I like to give everything a go.
Chatting about Pluto Minis is a pretty good segue. So we've got 2 events coming up for Battleforged Gaming. We'll just chat about this quickly before we get into the whole Lorehammer origin story, which is my favorite part of the podcast. But so the first event we've got on August 17th is the Victorious event in Box Hill, and we will be running a paint and take with people. So people can turn up. There'll be a range of models for them to grab and paint up, and then they can paint them up and leave with them. So that is the first event we'll be doing and what we'll be doing there. Yep. The second event is PAX.
Yep.
So we were lucky enough to be asked by House of War and Pluto Miniatures to come and do some stuff at PAX. We haven't finalized exactly what we're doing. It's going to be a bit of painting on stream. That is going to be 100% what we're doing, but in what capacity, we're not sure. We don't know if we're going to do it as a group. We've been asked to potentially do some battle report stuff, but in the space we've got, it could be a little bit difficult. So we'll have to see how we go with that type of stuff. But exciting. Events are always fun. So
yeah, especially after DreamHack, we had a ball doing that. So the opportunity to do some more events helps us grow. So that's very exciting.
Cool.
40k just wouldn't be the same without doing it with all these other people. I love the idea of these events, and just it would be very lonely if you didn't play with anyone, didn't show your minis with anyone. Weren't able to share your story. So I'm glad you guys are doing that kind of stuff. That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah, community's so good, and having like the community come up to us, like just having people that come into chat. Turn up at an event and say, "G'day, I'm X from chat" was such a great experience, and then chatting to them about what they're actually hobbying in person was great. Like I had an absolute blast with that type of stuff.
Yeah, excited for the next 2 and meeting everyone again.
Yeah, and we're just growing the Battleforged Gaming family, so it's fantastic. With that was sort of the housekeeping because of the time limit we're up to. Now, this is the part I like. How did you discover hobby in general Mark? How did you get, like, it's, you know, we could be
suckered
going
in.
way back here, but like at
Yeah,
what
this
age?
was 2 decades ago. We'll say that at the very least. 2 decades ago, when the Lord of the Rings movies came out. Wow, Lord of the Rings times, I guess. I started collecting those minis, and then when the movies ended, you know, I was already in Games Workshop, and I'm like, well, let's hop on over to 40k. So it was a very smooth, natural transition from kind of Lord of the Rings into other hobbying, and I never quite got into fantasy or anything like that, but always kind of looked at it, enjoyed it from a distance, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they're aesthetically they're pretty close, like that whole medieval fantasy vibe. So, but I guess it was tough for new people to get into what is now the old world, just with the rules, man.
Yeah.
It's tough to get into.
Yeah, it's a very different environment than when I started, man. Even just when you're reading through White Dwarfs and stuff and learning how to paint, we used to have two blotch color palettes, and somehow you'd get a mastercrafted mini out of that. Where nowadays, you know, we got all these YouTube channels and all the colors and everything we could possibly want. So it's quite the cool world we found ourselves in 20 years later in the hobby.
Oh, it's grown like massive. Like I started 13 years ago, I think now, and even in that amount of time, like I remember starting, there wasn't too many channels or Instagram or that happening, but now, oh man, it blows up. The amount of people making tutorials, patrons, I mean, podcasts. There's a bunch of podcasts you can listen to if you're into the hobby. So it's a fantastic time. It's only going to get bigger as well. Henry Cavill's gonna he's gonna shine the light on us.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lord of the Rings is how you got started. Did you branch out into the 40k at all when you were younger, or was it just the Lord of the Rings stuff?
Yeah, like I only did Lord of the Rings for like 2 years, and then the movies came out because they got released back to back year after year. So once those movies ended, that was kind of that. So, you know, I was probably 14 at the time, transitioned into 40k. So
yeah, did you play at all with the Lord of the Rings stuff when you were younger?
Yeah, no, I played. I went to tournaments and stuff. Even for those who know the host of Lorehammer, the very first time I met Christian was in a random Games Workshop, and we played the Lord of the Rings event together. And then, you know, the next summer, found out he went to my school or whatever, and that was kind of cool. Like, oh, fuck, hey, I know you. Some random guy
world.
that I rolled dice with. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. So, yeah, Christian, and that is so... Your podcast you had, was he the first host? You had a switching of hosts?
Yeah, we've had many hosts over the years, and even guest hosts, and like my friend circle, like we've had over 50 people on the show just as guests in some way or the other. Plus, if you include listener lore, there's another 100 people from the internet that isn't like my close friend, you know. But yeah, no, the show started with me, Christian, Eric, and Jordan, and you know, I was just trying to get people to talk to 40k about, and this was a good idea to trap them in a room and hold them hostage, and they couldn't do nothing about it. So that's kind of how it happened, and you know, it kind of worked. So they didn't leave the room.
So you're just like, I want to chat to these guys heaps. How did you convince these guys to do a podcast with you? What was
get stuck in a room with you?
Yeah, well,
yeah. Listen, we got one of two ways we can do this. Either we're getting in the fisticuffs, so we can just talk 40k. It was kind of
40k is definitely the easy way to do it.
No, like me and my friends, like just like you guys, all we do is just talk 40k lore. And what did this guy do in this situation? Blah blah blah, whatever nonsense we can think of. So it just only made sense to try to record some of these ramblings and see if we actually get worse mentally as we get older. Like it's kind of the benchmark of our mental state.
Yep.
So does that mean you go back and listen to your old episodes and see if you've progressed or degraded over time?
I know for me personally, it's not going to go good if I do that. So I just avoid, but you know, we don't need to
look into that.
Yeah, I will say, looking back at my like podcast, I hate looking at myself afterwards, like, or listening to one of my tutorials, and I'm like, oh, hearing your own voice is rough.
Yeah, that's fair.
I went to like a private school, and I never had to read out loud ever. So like literally the first time I started reading out loud was like on Lorehammer. And so the one thing I know about myself is now I can read out loud. So that's nice.
Did you
development.
like
Yay, podcasting.
Reading out loud is a skill in itself. I know because I've tried to do it on stream, like when I was reading rules and stuff.
Yep.
And occasionally I slip up. I don't know if I've got a small amount of dyslexia, but yeah, like there's been multiple times where I'm trying to say the same phrase over and over, and I can never actually nail it. So, is it something you practiced ever, like reading out loud, or it just the more you do on the podcast, the easier it got?
Yeah. Just more you do it, and it's not like it's not like I'm retarded. It's not that I don't know how to read. It's just I never practice. I can read in my mind faster than I can say the words is kind of the problem. So then you start tripping over yourself or whatever. But
I'm exactly
it wasn't like
the
a
same.
conscious thing. Yeah,
just got to slow down.
If I'm reading something and I try and read it as quick as what my brain is, it does not come out anywhere near like it should. So
I've found anything to do with the social media side of things, speaking slower helps anyway. So like if you got to
makes it sound smart too.
It does. Yeah. It gives people time to think about what you're saying, especially when you have one of those moments and you feel like you need to fill it with a filler word, an or an and you're just like, no, wait, I'll just pause. And then they'll be like, yo, that dude knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. The classic, let me think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
So the Lorehammer podcast, how many episodes are you up to now? You just finished filming another one.
Yeah, we're up to 104 like real episodes, but we got bonus episodes, so you could probably toss on another 50, 75.
Damn. So
listener lores.
You do them, is it like once a week or?
Yeah, the goal is now that we're kind of back up and going here to do every Friday night at 8:30. We're doing a live stream, essentially, is the concept. And whether we're doing an episode or whether we're going to start playing Space Marine 2 or playing some board games together or whatever, it's just going to be something Lorehammer. So
yeah, you just said the trigger word for these two guys. Space Marine 2.
We're all looking
Space
forward to
Marine
it.
2. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's going to be tight, man. I cannot wait.
It looks like it's going to be insane.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of guys you are, but even if that game is woke as all shit can be, the graphics are still tight and killing nids is going to be fun. So who cares?
It's going to be pretty.
It's going to be awesome.
I think it's going to be pretty tough for him to put some woke into Warhammer 40k. But
we're not here for the storyline. We're here for the bolter porn in this one. Come on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, I'm not too fond about the whole taking out the nids since they are my love, but look, I'll do it because the graphics look cool and get to play with mates. So I'll put it aside for this.
You'll just be hampering us from the behind the scenes, watching us get killed.
Yeah.
So
the tough
just taking some creative Tyranid anatomy classes.
Yes.
The tough part is going to be doing the paint streams when that comes out.
Yeah.
Because undoubtedly there's going to be like a bunch of people going, hey, we should play Space Marine 2, and
you'll know I'll be lurking in the wings.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to. I'll have to stick to the 3 hours or the 2.5 hours, and then just do some gaming after, like I've been doing.
They have made it dangerous with the 6v6 that they're bringing into it, or the 3v3.
I want the survival mode. That's what I've always enjoyed.
Cool.
The older I've gotten, the less I've enjoyed PvP. I guess my reactions are slower on video games and that type of stuff.
And who has time, man? Like everyone's so good. I don't have time to get good.
Yeah.
I got other things going on.
Yeah, just walk around a corner and a stalker bolter just takes you out.
Yeah.
So getting into the hobby, were you in the lore immediately when you started when you were younger, or was something developed over time?
I think it happened pretty instantly. You pick up a codex and you start reading it. Like it's kind of hand in hand in my mind. Because I definitely started with the tabletop and the minis, and then if you're playing, you have to pick up a codex. So
yeah, definitely.
Did you find that getting into the lore helped you stay, like, obviously you've made a podcast. Yeah. Did it help you stay motivated with like the painting side of things with your armies and stuff? Were you like, man, now that I know that like Fiston from the Blood Angels, did this feat at this planet, I'm like, now I really want to paint that dude.
Yeah, man, even after hundreds of episodes, we just did a small little series on the setting of old Terra and techno barbarians and stuff. And it's just like any little nick or corner you open up in 40k, it's going to be awesome. And you're going to want to have to buy models for it. And that's where I'm at the end of every episode. So we just did an episode on the Octarius War, and I'm thinking, do we have a Cryptman model yet? I think we need that.
So that I guess that's a dangerous side of the hobby.
Yeah.
Like I've read books and I've listened to audio books a little bit, and I'll admit, when I listened to some audio books about word bearers, I wasn't a massive fan of it. And I'm like, man, I just want to paint some word bearers up. So like, not only are you hearing about factions, you're hearing about units that don't even exist and wanting to create them. Because I've never heard of what's a cryptman. I've never even heard of that.
Yeah.
Inquisitor Cryptman is one of the lead inquisitors that kind of redirects Tyranids to fight orcs and creates this huge war. He exterminates a bunch of planets and stuff. Just an all-around fun guy to be around.
Sounds like
the extreme end of the scale for inquisitors.
Yeah. Yeah, when you get labeled as an extreme inquisitor, you know you got that dialed up to 11 for sure.
Yeah, so are you writing lore for your own paint projects at the moment that you were talking about with the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, nothing serious. I just wrote like a 1,000-word little short story. So let's count.
For us, we call that on the serious scale on our end of things.
Yo, you know what though? We live in a brave new world, and AI is scary as shit, but it's also incredibly helpful. It has taken my lore writing ability to another level. It's taken my note writing ability to another level for my podcasting and stuff. It's just very useful when, you can just kind of bounce ideas around and have it reword things slightly different yeah, man. If you're writing lore, like I think it's an essential to have ChatGPT in your corner writing with you. And you're not using word for word, but just like that.
Bouncing off sort of ideas sort of thing.
Yeah.
Almost like talking to someone else.
Yeah. You could get it to write a whole big thing, and then you could say, what didn't you like about this? And it said, I don't like this. And then you change that, and you can just build on it and build on it. What do you think I missed, chatbot? What do you think is missing in this story? And yeah, so for writing lore, like I think, it can really help you. You can be like, give me 10 different planet name locations at random. Perfect, done, easy.
So are you using it?
Stuff like that.
So you're not writing the entire lore and then asking ChatGPT. You're using it during the startup of the process as well for ideas?
Yeah, so I'll probably do like 75% maybe is like chatbot. Oh, sorry, is me, and then the rest. So basically, I'll write like a very sloppy, informal version of what I want it to then write nicely. So I'll write like just Marc version instead of writing YOU. That's just the letter U, and you just write it sloppy, and then you can say to chatbot, rewrite this in a grim dark. If you're writing about Necron, write horror maybe. And then it will kind of just reevaluate that all and reorganize and do it for you.
Because
if you guys haven't fucked around with it, definitely look at it, man.
Yeah, I haven't fucked around with it myself.
I haven't at all.
But it definitely sounds interesting.
It's crazy.
I've thought so early on when we had background Mike doing some podcasts and stuff, he would use AI, but it would be for artwork and stuff. So it's a very similar vein using that type of thing resource, where you type the details in you want and then refine it and then continue to do that process. It's actually really, really cool.
I've never thought about using it for lore though. Like that's actually a pretty cool idea. Yeah. Like, do you find that it pulls out random references with like knowledge from Warhammer or?
Yeah, so I find, whenever you get like a planet name or a person name, you definitely want to fact check that or a date. But when you're talking about overall themes or like, what is the culture or how did this affect the economy or, just overall stuff like that, it nails it every time and adds more than anything I could ever do. Right. It's fucking smarter than me, man.
Well, it's because it's locked into everything. So it looks up what you like. The amount of time that it takes it to find the information that you're searching for, your brain's never going to be able to do that, or your fingers aren't going to be able to click that many links or fact checking,
but
like you said.
Go play around with it, man, because like it really, like it's scary stuff, but also at the same time, you write some very cool lore and like it, how many times you wish you could read a story about your guys? Well, now it only takes 5 minutes and you can be.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I've got some Death Watch characters that I kit bashed and painted up. And they've got names and a little bit of a backstory, but they don't have like a whole cohesive story where they all come together. Yeah. So that's probably something that I could use to make a full story of that kill team in itself.
AI has interested me a lot, but I'm one of those bit of a conspiracy theorist first, so I've been a bit hesitant to jump on it. I won't even use it on my messenger or anything.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Don't get the brain chip. We can all agree on that, but write some sweet lore with chatbot.
Worried that my phone's going to turn into a Necron or something and come after me.
No, that's sweet. Well,
when phones attack.
So my biggest thing I probably ask in regards to lore is where to start. So like at the moment, I'm working on like the crew, and I want to do I'm ignoring the rest of Tau basically. So I'm just doing entire crew army is the plan, and
you wanting to keep your friends. That's why.
Yeah, well, you wanted to keep your friends. Like I'm doing Tau, but not officially doing Tau. Like kind of taking one step to the side.
I'm not that guy. When you're like, I'm a Tau player.
One of them. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm a crew player.
I'm a crew. Yeah. But like I just find it, like I have a vague idea of what the crew are like and stuff like that, but I find it daunting of like their actual lore inside the story and not like completely debunking it with my own lore by accident without reading everything. And because they're like a small section of the Tau, it's like there's not like one, at least not to my knowledge, one book I can read on that alone. It's like snippets out of other stories. And I find it daunting on finding a spot where to start and whether or not I need to go down that path of finding all those stories. And
you want a standalone crew book?
Yeah, I want a standalone crew book is basically what I'm asking. But so
yeah.
But,
no, that's an interesting thing. Like, where do you start when you're writing lore? And the first thing you have to do is you got to know the setting, which means, unfortunately, it's time, it's knowledge, and it's not something you just get. Thankfully, though, we have podcasts where getting this knowledge is so easy now. Yeah. But if you don't know the universe that you're writing about, you're not going to be able to write inside it. If you take a Harry Potter author and you put him into the 40k setter and write a book, the tones are not the same, so it just will not fit. So you really got to understand, like, what is 40k? It's a grimdark setting based on war. It's not a romantic comedy. It can be a comedy, but it's not a romantic comedy. Yeah, there's no Gilliman in your brain. Yeah. Like that shit's not in 40k. We don't want no weird furry porn art. Like, we're here for the grim dark war setting. So you gotta know the universe in order to write for something, and that goes for anything you're writing in. Then after that, you develop a setting. Like, come up with maybe a location. Like, are they on Peck? Maybe the home planet. Maybe crew, they're mercenaries. Maybe they're on the far side of the galaxy and they've been flung there and they're trying to make their way home. But once you kind of choose a location, that opens up, who's around them then? Am I in the Ultima segmentum and the Ultramarines are next to me? It really can help you kind of then dial in, okay, so who would be around? These could be potential enemies. From there, you got a planet, you got a location, you got some enemies. Well, now let's come up with a battle, or how did I get here? Or, you come up with a small little history on just kind of slowly dialing it in. When I'm writing with chatbot, like it's very basic to start, and then you just slowly add a thought or two, and eventually, you get something crazy out of it.
Yeah, but every time you sort of start with the same initial framework, and then flesh it out from there.
Yeah, exactly. Like every story for anyone who's gone to any post-secondary and taken like English classes or anything like that, every story needs a beginning, a middle, and end. There's usually a climax in there. These are things you got to think about even when writing like Wikipedia style articles on your lore. Like, what are the plot hooks that I'm trying to get across? Like, if we look at Space Wolves, we all know a big plot hook is like the 13th company that gets lost in the warp, and will they come back? Won't they come back? Like, including stuff like that to kind of make it interesting,
Draw you in.
Yeah. You come up with characters, obviously. Like, the easiest one is, who's the leader? What do you have a name for your crew?
No, I haven't yet. I've basically got like an idea in regards to paint scheme with like, their whole cannibalism sort of carnivore-esque style, but other than that, like I pretty much thought of doing like a mercenary gang, and that's kind of my starting point. I've been too scared to push further without doing more research. So.
Well, with crude, it's kind of interesting because even with your color, that might play into what you're up to with them. Like, if they're green, maybe they're fighting a lot of orcs, and maybe you get some green stuff out and you give them a couple bulging biceps, make them a little more muscular. So that's kind of interesting with Kroot, because so much of who they are is who they eat. So, you're not really necessarily even writing about Kroot. You're writing about what they're eating. And then in return, that then bleeds into your Kroot.
Yeah. There you go.
You didn't want to go down the route of my friend Ash with his lore creation and just call them like Chief Kroot Ash.
Yeah, just everything Ash.
Yeah, didn't want to do that.
No. In 2024 with chatbot, we do not allow silly names like that. You can have 1,000 randomized names. Come on, man.
Get some originality to it all.
Yeah. Kroot are kind of fun too, because they do have some humorous elements too. So maybe when you're writing, like they like to make humans feel uncomfortable, or just, they're eating that human leg beside Tau and just giving them the stink eye or something. You can kind of add that weird humor to bring you out of the grim dark a little bit.
Yeah.
That's another fun thing you could try with them.
Bit of comedy relief to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys thought about your own sort of lore for your armies?
Not for the Blood Angels yet. Like my where I'm heavily motivated obviously is just the painting, and I typically don't need outside sources to motivate me. But like I was saying, if I was to listen to some Blood Angel audiobooks, there'd be no doubt in my mind I'd just be like, all right, I need to paint even more of these guys. For now, it's sort of like just the second and the first company is what I'm working towards with painting my stuff, because I just want like the elite of the elite. And I have listened to some audiobooks like based on Blood Angels, Flesh Tearers as well. Like Gabriel Seth is absolutely amazing, and I love any story that revolves around him just being sort of the sword for the Imperium, as opposed to like trying to defend it. They're just like, this guy's best utilized headlong into the enemy. As long as you're not an Astra Militarum Imperial Guard that are next to them, you'd be pretty safe, I'd say. But I haven't really thought about only the Death Watch stuff that I painted up. Have I really thought about any lore? And I think I made some pretty cool stories, and the chatbot stuff sounds like it could expand that story even more quite easily, because I've got that framework. I haven't got like their location and who they're fighting. Obviously, Death Watch fight Xenos, so that one's pretty easy. I just need to find out which Xenos they're fighting.
Yeah. Pick like an obscure minor one, one of the 100 that they have that just have a line on it.
Pick on some minorities.
Yeah, man. There you go.
That is the grimdark future.
We won't use this clip for a short.
So I do have power over that. So we'll see how it goes.
And then us laughing afterwards. Minorities.
Filthy minorities. Hey, I'm an immigrant myself, so you guys watch your tone. I'm in Panama, so.
Hey, we're in Australia, man. So we're all
minorities here, basically.
We're all ex-prisoners from the UK.
Yeah.
There you go. What about you and your...
You've been thinking up some stuff, because you've gone on some wild adventure with your colours. You've got to have something behind your nails.
I've got like an idea. I definitely need to look into it more. I love lore behind Tyranids, but I feel like I think into stuff really deep. So I feel like when you listen to Tyranid audiobooks or podcasts and stuff like that, Tyranids are lethal. They are deadly. But then you see them on the field compared to some models, and it's just like, they've kind of done my boys dirty.
I mean, that's where it's hard, isn't it? When you read the lore and then it translates to the tabletop, and they're not the same.
Like the last audiobook I listened to, or podcast, Astra Militarum have gone to this farming planet, and it's just been absolutely mutilated by Tyranids. And they click on that there's like a hive, and they're hiding behind a wall, and this, like, one of the lictors or a leaper is literally on the other side of the wall, sees them with its heat vision and cuts them in half through the wall. And then you get stuff like the Tyranid warriors, which are just as strong. You put them on the battlefield, and it's like they don't really even stand up against a Terminator. But in the lore, those are the things that go after the Terminators and give them a good fight. So I get a little bit not off put. I love my Tyranids, but it's like, come on, they make it like they are the biggest. They're the biggest threat to mankind, but then you put them on the battlefield, and it's like,
Yeah, and sadly, sometimes Tyranids exist as the punching bag of 40k, where they don't have that personality, so you can beat up on them, you can sacrifice them in the lore, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So that happens to Nids too often too, where you just need a bad guy, so throw some Nids in and
then in the lore, but they're like everyone's scared of him. Like when people know Tyranids are coming, like the planet gets darkened as they enter, and they're terrifying. But then on the battlefield, I don't feel like they've got that fear as much. So maybe that's what I'll do in my lore: try and make them sound a lot more scarier and
Scary pink
Tyranids.
Yeah. So why pink?
Why?
What's the lore behind the pink?
It's actually a funny story. So Judd absolutely loves pink Necrons, and so I was like, oh, I'll do pink Necrons, and he's like, don't you dare do pink Necrons. And then when Leviathan came out, I was like, oh, I'll do pink Tyranids as a joke, and Judd's like, yeah, go on, man, do pink Tyranids. And I did one, and he kind of called me out on it, and then so I did some samples on some Carnifex heads that he gave me, and I really got around it. So I was like, actually, you know what, I will do a pink Tyranid army, and sort of the thing too, because I eventually want to go to playing tournaments and stuff like that, and I'm got quite a lot of tattoos and my style and stuff. I'm not the sort of person that you're going to expect to throw an army of pink Tyranids on the field. So classic. I kind of like that little, and then I think it's sort of with what we're trying to achieve with getting new people into the hobby and stuff, seeing someone like myself who you don't expect to paint pink Tyranids and seeing that I'm having a ball with it might encourage other people to just do the same thing. All right, yeah, most people probably aren't going to paint pink Tyranids because they're meant to be this scary biomass, but here we are, and they look cool, and
just be yourself. Basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Be scared about
being
outside the box.
Yeah.
Like 40k is such a big sandbox, and there really is something in there for everyone. And I think it just is a matter of finding what that thing is for that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've convinced thousands of people around the world to play 40k. It's not hard. It's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
Sells itself.
Yeah.
It's definitely the trick, is just trapping people into the hobby before they realize it's coming.
You spoke to us earlier, and now it sounds like you're going to give away your secrets here. You quite literally do trap people in the hobby, Marvin.
I try box is free.
Just slowly but surely.
Happy birthday!
Here's a gift card.
Here's some miniatures.
I'm like, you can buy a kill team, and you don't need to buy any paints. Just use mine for the start.
Oh, you're a woman. Here's some Sisters of Battle, girlfriend. You're in the hobby now.
I will say I was when you were trying to get back into the hobby, Mark. I wouldn't say I did that, but I was like, oh, I've got an artificer brush here that's still pretty good quality, and I just bought a new one. So here's an artificer brush to help you get back into like feathering your carapace and all the paints I had. I'd like double ups on a bunch of paints in like a shoebox, and I'm like, oh, here's paints. Yeah. Here's a bunch of paints, man.
Yeah,
100%.
There you go.
Definitely helped, and it's helped having people that do it around you as well. That definitely helps. It was a very hard hobby for me for a while when we sort of dropped out of contact, and I don't hang around other than the guys now that I hang around and do Warhammer with, which I love it. Like I've always been that kind of person, but I've kind of also hung out with people that are on the bit of a rougher side that aren't going to do that. It's hard when you're always hanging out with that kind of people who have no interest in the hobby. You try and bring it up and they're just like, yeah, like it sounds cool, but they've got no interest and the conversation's always gone. Whereas now I've got the community that Judd's built and Judd, and we're always talking about it. I've got people messaging me on Instagram and Facebook, sending me memes. It just helps. Like it keeps the passion there. I've always had the passion, but without it being something that I can be consistent with, it's having ADD as well. It makes it very easy for me to drift off if I don't have a little bit of support. Yeah. Obviously, I help encourage myself, but having you guys there and having the goal with BFG for battle reports definitely helps now. Whereas previously, it's like, oh yeah, I'll see Judd next month and we can paint some AOS for a while when I was doing the flesh eater courts. But if I didn't come often enough, it sort of got pushed to the side. Whereas now it's a focus. I've got the group of friends that I enjoy being around with. I like hanging out with my mates and doing Warhammer. So
it's different personality types.
Yes.
And you need to work out or like if you're on a spectrum or whatever, it's working out who you are as a person and how you function and how you stay motivated.
Yeah.
Like definitely. It was very easy for me to continue to just like even by myself, even if I wasn't doing any content creation or streaming, I could sit there and paint by myself no issues. Like even with no goal in mind of playing games or battle reports or anything like that, I could just
So you're
sit there.
just better than us. Is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
exactly.
It's just
Okay.
what's that?
Yeah,
That's
just
the whole
rub it
thing.
in our face.
It's a different personality type. I can sit there and my goal would be to fill a cabinet, even if nobody saw it, and that would I can do that. But that's because I know how I operate as a hobbyist. So, and like it's easy for me to continue to like message you when you like send me your Tyranids, and I'm like, yo, that pink's looking super seizure-y.
Psychotic.
That's some bright pink you got there, my guy.
Yeah, no, I'm the complete opposite. Like your streams is what encouraged me to paint, but like I invite people over to encourage myself to paint.
Yeah.
I'm like, come over and paint. That way I also spend the entire day painting. Otherwise I won't.
So you trapping other people is really just a way to trap yourself as well.
It's a full circle. You know, I'm like, yeah, get
It's
into
a
the
weird
hobby.
form of self-hatred.
So,
I think.
yeah, exactly right. So, but no, that's how it works for me.
I mean, that's partially the reason behind the paint streams. You know, people don't have someone to paint with. I paint every single night. People can turn up for 2 to 3 hours and sit there. Even if they paint for half an hour and they just chat to the people in chat, like progress is progress. And you'll be amazed by how it becomes a rolling stone down a hill. You know, you finish a model and you're like, oh man, that looks pretty cool. You finish that squad and you're like, wait, hang on. I could easily add a hero to this squad. And then it just progresses from there.
Well, even stuff
And
like
then 20 years go by and you're like, oh man,
Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah.
Where am I?
Yep.
even stuff like your podcast. Funny enough, like I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago, I actually started listening to your stuff, and it wasn't until talking today. I'm sometimes extremely slow. It was like, oh, the Lorehammer podcast. Yeah, sometimes. The Lorehammer podcast. I was like, wait a minute, is it this bloke? And on my Spotify, I've been listening to your podcast. So stuff like that. It's that community that Warhammer itself does have is just,
And it's very
crazy.
good. Like, I've been in other communities and they're not as good as 40k. They're not as welcoming. Like you go play some video games, man, and you better put earmuffs on and like it's bad. But like I swear, like everyone in 40k community, they just all want to paint minis and play with minis. We all just chill and we all just want to do that.
Yeah.
There are a couple of bad eggs, but for the most part, the Warhammer community is absolutely fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as daunting as people probably think.
No, it's super
It
welcoming.
is
Like,
awesome.
Yeah.
I was intimidated when I first went into Games Workshop, but that's why I went in with you. Yeah. Like it was so easy to go in with someone else that had been there, but hopefully we can help change that type of stigma behind the hobby. Hopefully it does. I think it'll just continue to grow and be more welcoming as a hobby itself.
Yeah, for me, it took
Now
a
here's
friend.
an interesting question though. At what point do we close the gate? Because yes, trust me, I've got probably more people than anyone in the world almost into 40k, you know, like let's put me up pretty close on that list. But also there are people I don't want in our hobby.
Yeah.
You know, there are people that we don't. So I don't know, what do you guys have lines like that at all? Like, because you guys seem very friendly and welcoming. That's great. And I love that. But also there are some people we don't want in our hobby. We mentioned some degenerates. Like obviously we don't want a Nazi in our hobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's
so
hard.
the one thing that I've kind of been seeing with 40k, and it gets me a little worried, you know, the more you open it up for everyone, not only do you start diluting the lore because now it's for everyone, you also start getting more and more people that are not actually there for 40k.
they're just wanting to be part of it because it's popular.
Just that, or you know, they think it's something it's not, or they have their own ideologies they want to try to push into something, or just whatever. Everyone has their own motivations for doing whatever.
Yeah. It's definitely hard.
But I don't know. For me, I love having new people in the hobby. Don't get me wrong, but also I also warn people we got to not just let everyone in. We also got to make sure the people we let in have the same passion and desire to see 40k thrive as we do. Because there are people in our community now that do not have that goal and desire.
Yeah, I mean,
so, there's a word.
We
to
probably
the
see it a
warning.
bit like in the Twitch chat, and I just as like I don't think it's necessarily an issue of who you invite, but who you encourage, maybe.
Maybe that's a better way to say it.
So it's not necessarily like trying to invite an exclusive group, but like we encourage those that support
each other,
the community and everyone else around them. And then that
is a way better way.
Silences that sort of minority to a degree.
Yeah, I think coming from like the Battleforge Gaming streams, we don't tend to come across people that you wouldn't typically want to come in the hobby. Like people that are coming on the stream are interested in 40k, right? Or Age of Sigmar. They're like, or they're a new person. They've like teetered on the outside and they're like, oh, how do I finally get into it? So like, luckily enough for us, we don't really have to
cross that too often.
To be honest, anyway, I think I'm not a person that's afraid to say it how it is. So I think that if as the community grows, we go to an event, if we have someone that's, like you're saying, not doing it for the right ways, like if they're coming in and we're trying to teach, a new young person who's actually has a love for it, they come in, they absolutely destroy them in a game or something when we've asked them to teach them, I'd turn around and be like, nah, man, you're not welcome doing that. If you're going to keep doing that kind of stuff, this isn't for you. That's not what we're trying to go for. If you're trying to go for that, that's probably somewhere else. Like we've got Lockie, who people from the stream know. He's a phenomenal player. He's insane. But if he knows that he's playing someone that's new, he's not going to play the same way that he plays competitively. And that's the kind of people. Yeah. It's reading the room as well. If you're going to read the room wrong and if you're going to affect the hobby for other people in a negative way, we don't want you. And that's what the BFG is about. It's growing it for a better way, not just so you can be like, hey man, look, I can paint this model and I can paint better than you. No, you don't paint better than anyone else. You just have a different paint style. Pull your head out.
Yeah. Nothing drives me more insane when I'm scrolling through Instagram and it's just some random chick and she's showing you her tits. I mean, her mini. It's just, Yeah. It's like, you're not here for 40k. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's a sort of difficult area in the hobby now because, like, a lot of the Warhammer community easily influenced by attractive ladies. So like it's like shooting fish in a barrel when it comes to that type of stuff. So I don't think there's any way to
stop it per se.
To necessarily stop it. I mean, some of them, like I don't know if those type of people are genuinely interested in the hobby. Some of them might, and then they're like, well, I am interested in the hobby, but I could easily do this and get even more followers. Look,
I think that's
the day is coming when eventually I will be doing some shirtless stuff. And
so the Jacuzzi stream has happened one day.
Yeah, I've warned you guys. The BFG following is about to skyrocket. I mean, there's a bunch of like guys doing fitness stuff in the Warhammer community.
BFG doesn't actually stand for Battleforge Gaming, does it? It stands for big fucking guns.
You know it, man. You know it.
The guns right.
Yeah, well, like who's that? I forget his name. The one that does a lot of terrain in particular.
He's I can't. Artifacts?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, is absolutely ripped, and obviously, like unnaturally so. But he leans right into it all with his.
Well, he's
content.
Unnaturally so. Like he's even said he's not natural.
Says so. Yeah. But yeah.
But like you can see, he's also passionate about the hobby.
Yes,
so like 100%. That. This is where like
it toes the line.
Yeah, like he's obviously playing on the fact that he's a power lifter, he's a bodybuilder, and he enjoys that side of things. But you can also see he's extremely passionate about the hobby, like when he makes his videos and stuff. So it's when that OnlyFans takes over more than the passion for the hobby.
Yeah,
it's cool if you're an attractive girl and you're doing some cosplay and you really like enjoying like I'm trying not to pick on girls here, like it's anybody. If you're an attractive person and you're pushing that OnlyFans side more than you are the hobby side, then you need to you need to sort of have a look at
reassess.
Yeah. So if you're passionate about the hobby, then that's fantastic. And if you're attractive, then well, you're pretty damn lucky then, aren't you? I'm not sure when we started this podcast. I feel like Google Meets is going to abrupt.
We got 20 minutes still.
We got 20 minutes? Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
really.
Cool. All right. Let's try
16
and
technically, but
So
let's try and fill another 14 minutes.
No,
then
so
if we can.
what do you have sort of future goals and future plans with what you want to do with your podcast?
yeah, there's always something new you could try. There's always a new episode style or branch out into a new platform. I think for me, I want to start making a lot more merchandise, exclusive Lorehammer merchandise, and just kind of start collecting odd items. Like we did dice at one point, and it was cool to have a Lorehammer dice. I want more Lorehammer merch type stuff, So I'm working with some 3D artists even right now, and we're making a Magic the Gathering deck based on, it's like a reskin of the Imperial Armies deck. And we're theming it in old Terra. So basically we're doing a bunch of images and then just slapping them over the old cards, existing cards. And then I'll have a cool old Terra Magic deck, just kind of stuff like that where it's unique and just different. And it's not even like, I don't think I'm going to sell a bunch of these Magic decks, but it's going to be cool when I slap one of those down.
Yeah,
fair enough. You have done like a tournament in the past and stuff like that. Is that something you'd look at doing in the future again, or?
Unfortunately not. Like I moved out of Canada down to Central America. So yeah, like I live in a country that doesn't speak English and I don't speak very well Spanish. So there's not a lot of 40k on my agenda in that kind of regard.
Fair enough. Yeah.
That's one of those things.
I'm having a baby though pretty quick. So like, if you can't make friends, make a friend, Yeah,
that's one way of doing it. And then they've got no choice. I mean, they're going to like Warhammer, do they?
Yeah, they're going to be raised on it.
So. Yeah. No, me and my two co-hosts, we're all having kids here within the next couple months. So all three of us are having kids. And, we're just joking about it. It's funny. 7 years ago when we started Lorehammer, we weren't dads, but now we are. And Dad Hammer, let's start indoctrinating children. Let's come up with some bedtime tales. Like, yeah. It'd be fun.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, when you
talk, there's always something you can mess around with, a new style of episode or just whatever you can kind of. The key is just have fun, and that's always what I've tried to do with it.
Yeah, when you do talk to people about how they got into the hobby, or a lot of people have got into the hobby because of their parents. Like they remember their dad or their mum doing some Warhammer stuff, and I use Ash as an example. He's got some daughters and they're not old enough yet, but they are very interested in what Dad's doing when he's painting his models and stuff.
Or Tiny with his daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we were kind of even talking about like just people in the community, and if we don't have more people growing up and actually being born to play 40k, it doesn't matter how great a game is. We need more people essentially if we want more people in 40k. So my advice to all you guys is start pumping out those kids. And we have a lot of 40k players all of a sudden.
I'm not in a fantastic position to do that right now.
I hope my partner's not watching because I know what conversation she's going to be having with me when I get home. So
ready for Dice Mummy to pop up and chat any second now.
Nah, 100%. I will try and get my nephews into it eventually as well. Like I
didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So
open up my ideas of introducing more people. Like, oh yeah, cousins and nephews. Yeah.
I
gotta get my phone book.
I haven't thought about this before.
I haven't thought about family.
I haven't tried to drag them in yet. So,
I've often asked my brother. I've got a twin brother, and I have a feeling he would absolutely love the hobby. He just doesn't have the time to paint miniatures and stuff. So I'm almost certain if I was like, hey man, I've got an army here that's painted. If you want to come and play a game, he'd be like, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And between all the game systems, there is literally something for everyone. I would be surprised if anyone could look at all the models that Games Workshop have to offer and say, not wow to at least one model that looks sick. Because that's all it takes.
Yeah, whether it's Battlefield Gothic, whether it's Blood Bowl, Middle Earth, 40, like there has to be something. There has to be
100%. Yeah, definitely.
And then there's the scale of the game too.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't have to be the 2,000 point Warhammer game. It could be as small as the Underworld. Is it the Underworlds where you've got the little cards and you've got like 5 dudes?
Yeah.
And a cardboard board to play on. Like that's super easy to get into. And they've even got it to the point where the models are colored. So if you're not even remotely interested in painting, you can still assemble those models. And play
Even
them.
like with what you do with your podcast and stuff, like Warhammer is that forgiving that you could create your own small games. So it's not intimidating to start off with and go, my friends want me to have a 1,300 point army or whatever. Both of you go buy a box, mate. Like if the points, or even if you're happy, don't even worry about the points. Have a game against each other, roll some dice, see what it's about, learn it from a small scale and build yourself up. It doesn't have to be looked at as a hobby that, okay, I need to have an army this big, because it can be very daunting, especially looking at it to come in and you're like, I need to buy 40, like as a Tyrannid player, I have a lot of Tyrannids fit into 1,300 points.
Yeah.
So you look at that and that's going to be very daunting.
Even use some Lorehammer stuff to make your own scenarios and gameplay and stuff like that.
Listen to
like
the
you don't
battle,
need
right,
to
that
necessarily follow how to play the game. There was a while where I'd go into Games Workshop and we'd do sort of a Diablo-esque game where people would move and you'd have you have little like chests around the board and you could like get different weapon attributes by opening chests. You'd randomly roll on it and then there'd just be like Tyranids swarming everywhere. So it was sort of meant to, it was meant to be able to include, up to like 6 people being able to play, and then the Tyranids would just attack the closest person, and then that way you could get more people involved, and you'd have one model.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's awesome. So, and having so many people involved at the same time, like 6 players.
Yeah.
Instead of like 2 people playing for like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, depending on
the creativity doesn't have to be just in the
game.
Yeah, and really,
So,
40k, it's one person playing for 1 hour, then another person playing for 1 hour as you go through turns. It's less than ideal.
Yeah, and I think kind of breaking, not a stigma, but with a lot more online content being produced, like a lot of the stuff you see is like those perfectly painted models or those really large battle report games and stuff like that. So I think kind of like introducing people into the hobby that's not what you need to start at. You know, there's mini stepping stones that you take, and then it's 10 years down the track that you're.
We were talking about it earlier. People trying to get into the hobby and maybe being turned off because someone has got a fully painted army, not realizing that's a 5-year like project to get to that point, and then also being
thousands of dollars.
And then being intimidated by that 5 years, when realistically you should just be looking at that one little project in front of you, and then the next. Don't be future projecting too much.
Look at it like how you cook dinner. Unless you're a meal prepper, you don't cook the dinner for the whole week and eat it on the one night. You cook that meal for that night, and then the next day you worry about the next meal. It's the same with the
I like
hobby.
that.
Yeah, that's a cool way to look at it. So,
I'm pretty hungry.
pretty hungry too.
That might be a good time to finish up, because I am actually pretty hungry. So, we've spoken about your future plans. Have you guys got future plans? You've got more NIDs to paint, obviously, like tons of more NIDs. Are you going to go home and create some lore behind your crew now? After talking to Marc?
Probably not immediately. Like we've got the 2 events coming up, so I'm pretty excited about those.
You could chat GPT automatically.
Yeah, just one hand.
It'd be done in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So, no, like I definitely will be looking at the lore now. It's a good point as an area to start, because funnily enough, I find the painting very easy to get into, but the lore to be quite intimidating in regards to.
The thing is, we're not all writers. That's the thing. Like. Just like we're not all painters.
I think English was my worst class in school.
Was it? I can't remember what mine was.
So,
I think all of school.
All of school.
Yeah, I had a 75% absent rate in year 12. So.
Heck yeah. You're living.
Even better.
And now look at you.
I know.
Yeah.
Killing it.
So.
No, it's been a pleasure. So we haven't really said anything. So what? Sort of give yourself a little bit of a plug so people know who you are, like where to find
where
you.
to reach you.
Yeah, we've said Lorehammer. We've said Lorehammer a bunch, but
where to find you, what you do.
I run Lorehammer. We just started firing up, making episodes again. We're on like a 2-year hiatus, but back in the day, we were the biggest 40k podcast in the world. So kind of a fun time there. Lots of people out there that just love talking 40k. So I do a podcast, and kind of our goal is just diving into all the lore. We don't do any tactics or hobby talk really. It's just, sit down. You got 3 hours of lore coming at you.
Very nice.
Cool. Have you got a website at all?
Yeah, we actually just started one, lorehammerpodcast.com. We're starting to launch merch. If you check by, I don't know, the 15th of this month, you can probably place order for dice and stuff. So
nice. Well, I'll chuck that in the description. I'll put a link to the Lorehammer podcast in our description as well, just so people can find it easily. This will obviously be up on YouTube for people to watch it all over again. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
Yes,
it's absolutely amazing chat. I have no doubt we could fill another podcast with even more Lorehammer chat.
Yeah. Well, you have my number now, so
Maybe we all write a little bit of lore in sometime in the future.
Yeah, and
we'll get Marc to review our lore.
Yeah. There we go. I'll judge you boys. I don't mind doing that.
Awesome.
Seriously, guys, thanks for having me on.
No worries. And I'll be painting some Pluto miniatures tonight. That's what I'm going to be doing in the near future.
So I will be with you too, just in the background.
Nice. All right. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Like, share, sub, and check out the Lorehammer podcast as well as the Battleforged Gaming podcast. See you guys.